Good morning, guys. Happy Saturday. Please excuse my gravelly voice. Y'all know how, it is when you're first waking up, recording the videos. It's like early 7 something. I've been up for maybe like 35 minutes. So, for our Freedom Bible reading today, we're going to read Acts 27 and 28. We're going to revisit it. It's talking about Paul sails for Rome, the storm, the shipwreck. That's all in 27. And then in 28 is ashore on Malta, an arrival at Rome. Paul preaches at Rome under guard. So we'll get into that. But before we get into that, I wanted to read from our little devotional book, Dayspring Brightener. So I'm going to read you guys all the ones from February. The one for today says, what God puts in us makes us who we are. What we do with it makes us who we become. So this is the one for today. And then the Joyce Meyer devotional, I'm going to record that video separate. Yeah, I'll record that separate. And then if I don't see you guys back on Monday, Lord's will, I'll see you guys back on Tuesday. So this is today. I really, really love this one. It says, what God puts in us makes us who we are. What we do with it makes us who we become. Then the 12th, it says, and bear with me, guys. I'm going to keep repeating it. Just, I'm still kind of waking up, even though I'm up. So February 12th, we can be mirrors that brightly reflect the glory of the Lord. And as the Spirit of the Lord works within us, we become more and more like Him. 2 Corinthians 3:18. That was the one from yesterday. The one from the 11th said, today is an empty canvas, painted with moments that will make God smile. The 10th was, guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. Psalms 25:5. And guys, I'm telling y'all, each time I read one of these, it's like that's the one I needed for that day. I'm not even saying that week, that day. It's always like right on time. I love this little brightener. We've been reading from it since like 2018. And every year I just read it over and over again. Sometimes I forget the quotes, because a whole year worth of things. But when I focus on it each day and I really focus in on it and not just read it and say, oh, that was the quote or the inspiration or verse for the day, but I actually apply it to my day, it is such a blessing. So that was the 10th. Excuse me, guys. Y'all hear my stomach growl. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, and I ate dinner earlier. Let me just finish this video. Finish up. Okay, tonight. Give God, I love this. Give God your day and stay out of the way. February 8th. So I'm going to keep reading, but this has spoke to me because a prayer that I prayed to God. One of them was like a longer standing one that's and then the other one was it was quick. He had already told me I have it. He already had it, and he did. So it's after I said my declarations and prayers, when that came back up, he had already was I already got that. So then when I afterwards I prayed and everything, and I was getting up and getting my son ready for school, before getting him ready for school and stuff, and getting the breakfast prepared and stuff. I always go to this before I really start my day, and I flip to this one on the 9th, and it said this, and I laughed so hard, and I said, okay, God, I hear you, because that's basically what he was saying is, keep your trust in me. You got your trust in me, but with that situation, I told you I had it, and he did too. And he always have it. He always have me. So February 8th says, you can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light. 1 Peter 2:9, yes. And February 7th, the moments in this day will not come again. Be a light in everyone that you can. I'm sharing these with y'all because I felt led to share them this morning. And I pray that encourage, you guys watching this. So the 6th, be joyful always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18. Then the 5th says, first pray, then do. This had helped me a lot too, because this was a very busy day for me. My schedule is busy a lot anyway, well, most productive and fruitful, I would say, more so than busy. And on this day, I had prayed, and God was showing me something different with the prayers. So I did, and then it was so much I had to do this day. But not only was it saying first pray then do, which I usually pray, but the wisdom and the strategies that he gave me for that day, since that day was like more busier than sorry guys, this light, oh, hold on guys, this light is acting up. Okay, anyway, was more busier than some of the other days. It's like he was saying, pray your prayers, right? But then pray with this situation. Let me show you the strategy for this. And then do, so that's exactly what I did. And he made things that was, just so much to do. He gave me wisdom on how to get it done because it had to be done. And a lot of stuff had to be done. And like within a certain time frame. And he gave me the wisdom on how to do it. And I didn't feel like overextended or anything. I didn't feel burnt out. I felt ease. Because like I actually applied it. That's what I'm saying. I actually applied it. First pray, then do. Okay, hold on a second, guys. Alright, I had to talk to that little light. So first pray, then do. And then, it's encouraging because, yes, we're praying daily. Yes, we're praying. But then it's like, be open every day to what he's saying to your prayers, because every day he's not going to say the same thing. And we know that. And every day he doesn't say the same thing. I know that too. But it's just, don't look at it. So I don't know who I'm in trouble. Like, don't look at it like, oh, this is just my prayer for this day. And, God can do anything in that day. He can do anything through your prayers in that day. He can give you another nugget. He can give you another tool to couple with that prayer. So that was a blessing. So then the fourth says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. John 10:10-11. The third says, today is a brand new opportunity to live fully, thankfully, and triumphantly in Christ. This was a blessing. All of them be a blessing, but some of them stand out to me more than others. But each day it's all a blessing for me. And it helps build my faith, and it helps build my dependency on God and stuff, and me looking to his word, because his word is so powerful, and his word, will not fail. And, as you look throughout the years of your life, you see how the word of God moved in your life, or is moving or will move. Like it is something that we shall trust in and need to continue to trust in. So the second said, the grass withers and the flowers fall, excuse me, but the word of the Lord stands forever. 1 Peter 2:5. And then the first says, we are not going to learn how to grab hold of true and divine joy when our circumstances are good. This had really, really, really helped me personally. It's going to be when we have nothing other than God to cling to with both hands. Because, when you're ministering to people and you're allowing God to really use you on a deeper capacity, like your yes is yes, like you forsake all, you surrender all, you've gone through the process, you're going through the process. Sometimes people don't really know what you're going through, and it's not saying something necessarily bad, but it could be inconvenience or uncomfortable to you, or they just really don't know what the yes or your surrender to God costs you. This had really encouraged me, like I'm sure many of you can relate. This had really encouraged me, because it's like when I say I love God with everything, I mean that. When I say I have surrendered so much for God and to God, I mean that. Like, my private life and my public life match, and it's a lot you guys don't see. I didn't know this video was going like this morning, but okay, so it's a lot you guys don't see, just like many of you that are doing what God has called you to do, whatever capacity it's in. You still being obedient and doing it. He's still pleased with you, and you doing it. And it's a lot that they don't see behind the scenes of your life, or just the ministry, or just the things that you suffer or you've gone through, or the result of the yes, So this had really encouraged my heart on this day. And I think about him too. We're going to get into the Acts reading. So I think about him too, not just for that day, but it'll be like a couple days later or a couple weeks later where that quote or that the inspirational text that came back is an encouragement. So let's get into Acts 27, guys. Now it's time for Bible reading. I pray that you were blessed by that. I wasn't going to read from there this morning, but this morning when I went to check what the word said for the day, it's like the Lord was saying, grab it and read it for someone. So I was like, okay, God, cool. So I was just being obedient. So we do have an Acts series, God. We've read from the book of Acts. We've studied it. We've taken notes. Today we're mostly going to be just reading. This does tie into what we're talking about, our theme for this month, which is freedom. And basically, let me tell you guys what happened in 25. So no, let me tell you in 24. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to go into a teacher either, because y'all know I be getting excited by the word. But let me just kind of give you guys what led up to this. So basically, in 23, there's a plot to kill Apostle Paul. Then he was transferred to Caesarea. Then there was this trial before Felix. Then in 25, there's a trial before Festus. I mean, this man had went through so much within these chapters. It's so much period, but so much within these chapters, right? Then Festus consults King Agrippa. Then Paul was before King Agrippa. 26, he's still before Agrippa. And Agrippa talking to Festus and things. So now we're getting what Paul sails for Rome. Because let me read to you guys verse 28 through 32. You know what? We're just going to read 27. But you could read it or check out our Acts series when we did it. I'm just going to read 27. Now Paul sails for Rome. Okay, because what happened, Agrippa said to Festus, this man could have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar. Because they were saying that. So the king rose, and with him the governor Bernice, this is 30, and those sitting with them. They left the room, and while talking with one another, they said, this man is not doing anything that deserves death or imprisonment. Because Paul had to plead like his case before them and things. So now they sails for Rome. Okay, when it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We boarded a ship from, just hold on, because I don't know how to say, let's pronounce this together, Adram Yitium, sometimes the names and the locations, guys, about to sail. They boarded a ship from there, about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so that they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea, and I want this to encourage somebody this morning. I want this to encourage someone. This morning, God had gave me this a couple days back when we were reading the Bible 1 and 2. If you guys been noticing that over the last couple days, like the last 3-4 days, see this for what God has sent for you naturally, but also spiritually. Your freedom, and no matter what storms you go through in opposition, how God is always with you and going to be with you. And He's not going to give you over to death. He's not going to give you over to, when I say death, it's not saying none of us are not going to die. We have videos talking about that. Either you're going to die or be raptured up. But it's saying He's not going to allow you to be given over to the enemy. So the enemy can take you out, whether that be spiritually or in any area of your life. The enemy is basically not going to be able to sift you. God got His hands on you is what I'm saying, for bottom line. So, wait, let me set up. So, okay, let me go back up. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so that they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea off the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra in Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off Cnidus. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the lee of Crete opposite Salmon. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens near the town of Lasea. Much time had been lost, and sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was after the fast, or the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. So Paul warned them, see, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo into our own lives also. So he had to see this spiritually and naturally, right? But he had to see this. He saw it and he warned them. And it's gonna, watch what's gonna happen too, into our own lives also. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, which would have been wisdom, followed the advice of the pilot and of the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on. See, sometimes majority does not always rule. And we have videos talking about wisdom, and it doesn't matter what the majority say. When you are with God, you and God be the majority in a lot of cases. So the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix in winter there. This was a harbor in Crete facing both southwest and northwest. The storm, and even though we're reading it like this, it is a while. It's not just like a couple hours and it's over. It's like a process. The storm, when a gentle south wind began to blow, they thought they had obtained what they wanted. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called the northeaster, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. When the men had hoisted it aboard, they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. Fearing that they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis, they lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ships. Could you imagine being in this situation for days? Some people will panic if it's a few minutes or a few hours. This was for days. And you just in the open sea with hurricane winds. I don't know where many of you live. I'm in Florida, and we're used to the hurricanes, but that don't mean we like them. And them hurricanes don't be no joke. And other places of the world experience hurricanes too. Maybe you do, or maybe you live in a place where it's so cold all the time, or it's so hot. Like sometimes it's so hot, it's mostly hot here, or it's always snowing, or it's always raining, and you used to it. Some people live in places where there's a lot of thunderstorms, where it's a lot of tornadoes or different things, and it's like, no, but so imagine being in this for 3 days, and you just in open water. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. I don't know who even that's for, but sometimes God will allow you to get into a situation where it feels like all hope is lost, just so that you can really see His hand in your life, just so that you can really see that He is God and He is real, and only He can save you. And it don't have to be in this raging sea boat all these days. It could be a raging storm that you're going through in your life or within yourself or with somebody else. So after the man had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you." See, the Apostle Paul is still being a blessing to them, even though a lot of them weren't being a blessing to him. But we know it says Julius was in kindness to him, So he said, but now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of the God whose I am and whom I serve. Why did he specify that? Because a lot of them did not believe in his God. A lot of them were mocking him and saying he was crazy. A lot of them didn't see, but I'm sure they see now. And I want that to encourage somebody. You know, a lot of those pagan people had different gods. They believed they had a different God for everything. You know, and this is why he specified. Last night, an angel of the God whose I am, and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you." Before this even really got this deep, he already told him, you know, so keep up your courage, man, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. And let this encourage someone. This verse 25. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island, the shipwreck. On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea. And what is that? That is, says, in ancient times, the name referred to an area extending well south of Italy. When about midnight, the sailors, since they were approaching land, they took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep, like 37 meters or 20 argias in the Greek. Either way, that's some deep water. If you're looking at 6 feet or 12 feet of water in the pool, this thing say this water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. Jesus, yes, God, prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it fall away. That's a word for somebody too. Let it fall away so what does remain can remain, or so that you can really get what God has for you. Sometimes you have to prioritize and really decide to choose God, and not sometimes, but really you have to choose God above all. You want his results, you got to do it his way. You know. So I almost said something. Let me keep going. So just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, that's like 2 weeks, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. Apostle Paul is encouraging them, but he need encouragement. And the Lord sent the angel to encourage him, and he encouraging him. He's not allowing his situation to dictate his praise to God, or dictate is he going to encourage people, or dictate is he going to, am I going to be bitter because of this situation? I'm in the situation I asked to be in the situation, or I'm allowed to strengthen me and draw me closer to God. So he's encouraging them. So after he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, listen guys, there were 276 of us on board. That's a big boat, and that's a lot of people with a lot of different spirits and a lot of different opinions and a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different personalities. But these men were encouraged, and they're taking heed to the wisdom, because his wisdom is not just from Paul, it is from the Lord. That's why we should be grateful for the Holy Spirit and for divine connections from God, because it can make or break. It could change our lives. It could save our lives, So when they had eaten, and that personal relationship with God too, and who he blessed to be in your life, So when they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea, and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The boat stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken into pieces by the pounding of the surf. There's this show, I like to watch a lot of shows, but one of the shows I really like to watch is called Dual Survival. If you've ever watched that, let me know. But it's kind of reminding me of this, because it's like the goal is to survive. They be in intense situations. They'll be like reenacting, or what you should do if you are ever in that situation. They don't advise that you do it, because there are professionals who's doing it. But it's like the survival and what they do in those situations to survive. So it's like it's wise to do that. Just like I'm reading this is reminding me of dual survival, even though this happened way before dual survival. So where are we? So where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea, and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The boat stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. See, favor with God and favor with man, guys. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land in safety. Can you talk about freedom seriously with, this 27? So let's read 28. I hope that this thing does not cut off. If it does, I'm going to have to do a part 2. So, ashore on Malta. Once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire, and see how God let them go there. It could have been any other island, any other land. Why there? Sometimes you may not understand the journey, but the destination is important, right? Okay, so the islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us all because it was raining and cold. Now, if you're just coming out of water for all them days, your body can go into hypothermia. Your body can go into shock. You're dehydrated. You can't drink that type of water. That's going to make it worse and you'll die faster. So just think about now, if it's raining and it's freezing and it's cold or snowing or storming and you come in and you're soaking wet, what's going to happen to you? If you don't change your clothes and dry off, you're going to start coughing. You may get sick. So this fire really helped them. It's helping their blood and their body to get back to normal, right? Because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper driven out by the heat fastened itself on his hand, like a viper, a snake. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, "This man must be a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live." But Paul shook the snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. Talk about that Psalms 91, guys. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead, but after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds and said he was a god. There was an estate nearby that belonged to Publius, the chief official of the island. He welcomed us to his home and for 3 days entertained us hospitably. His father was sick in bed. Do you see the divine connections just as we're reading this? Even as I'm rereading this with you guys, it's like I'm seeing it in a greater light. That's why no matter how many times I read something in the Bible, it's like it relates to that season and I see it in a deeper way. I've shared that with you guys before. I know many of you do too. But do you just see the divine connections like boom, 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 boom? He welcomed us to his home and for 3 days entertained us hospitably. His father was sick in bed, suffering from fever and dysentery. Both of them together is like, not a good combination. Paul went in to see him and after prayer placed his hands on him and healed him. When this had happened, the rest of the sick on the island came and were cured. They honored us in many ways, and when we were ready to sail, they furnished us with the supplies we needed. Remember, they had to get rid of a lot of those supplies, and look how God restored it back. And look who the favor coming through. Arrival at Rome. After 3 months, like 90 days, we put out to sea in a ship that had wintered in the island. It was an Alexandrian ship with the figurehead of the twin gods Castor and Pollux. We put in at Syracuse and stayed there 3 days. From there, we set sail and arrived at Rhegium. The next day, the south wind came up, and on the following day, we reached Puteoli. Okay, there we found some brothers who invited us to spend a week with them, and so we came to Rome. The brothers there had heard that we were coming, and they traveled as far as the Forum of Appius and the 3 Taverns to meet us. At the sight of these men, Paul thanked God and was encouraged. When we got to Rome, Paul was allowed to live by himself with a soldier to guard him. freedom. Even though he's not fully free, it's better than what it could have been. Paul preaches at Rome under guard, and I hope that encourages someone, because you're looking at certain things and it's like, it could have been worse. It's not, taken away from what you're going through, but it's like it really could have been worse. So what can you be grateful for? Because that situation could have turned out another way. Yeah, that's a lot I could say with that. Let's close. Paul preaches at Rome under guard. 3 days later, he called together the leaders of the Jews. When they had assembled, Paul said to them, "My brothers, although I have done nothing against our people or against the customs of our ancestors, I was arrested in Jerusalem and handed over to the Romans. They examined me and wanted to release me because I was not guilty of any crime deserving death." And I'm going to say this really quick. If this thing cut off, you guys just keep reading. But I have to say this for someone because the Lord's telling me to say it. Be grateful. This is a word for someone today. I've always encouraged you guys to be grateful no matter what. The Bible tells us that we are to thank God, in all things. It doesn't say for all things, because we don't always go through things that are worthy of thanksgiving or that make us feel good or want to praise God. But it says thank Him, in all things, and be grateful. God knows your situation. He told you He gonna turn it around. He gonna turn it around. That bed or that marriage or that job or that car that you're complaining about, if God were to take it away from you and give it to someone else who would be grateful, how would you feel? You're complaining because you got to do this and that, but God gave you the health and strength to do it. It's somebody that is laid up right now that don't have no health or strength right now. And it's not taken away from nobody's situation. But God is trying to get you to focus on the bigger picture and to be grateful. Because a lot of what you are complaining about, when God already told you He had you, and you being like